are you? Hi, everyone. Happy Valentine's
Hi.
Day.
You look so good.
Thank you.
I really wish I like dressed up now. So I think maybe we should just get straight into it. So how does that sound? Should we just go straight into it?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. So before we get into like your ballroom life, and like the ballroom scene in the 90s, I thought it might be a really good idea just to sort of contextualize it, and sort of paint us a picture of what New York City was like in general as a space to navigate, like as a young person. That would be amazing just to like give us that image.
I can give you an image of when I entered New York City. I'm originally from Philadelphia, so I can give you an image of when I entered New York City. And the image was, well, it was free going. It was very special to me, and it was dangerous, but it was also a time where a lot of change was happening. And it was a time where we were really united. We had really grown into family units. We had really grown into sisterhoods and brotherhoods. And we tried to, amongst our own families, look out. We did look out for each other. So it was a very unifying time because we didn't have all these labels to separate us from one another. You were either a butch queen or a femme queen, and you were a queen, period. And you were a part of this entity that is the ballroom scene. So it kept us close-knit.
And in terms of like you made that move from Philadelphia to New York, and what was like the entry point for your journey into ballroom? Like who brought you into it? Where did it really start?
My ballroom, and entering into the ballroom, I was brought into the ballroom by my gay mother, Tanya Jerlan. I met her at Rose's, a club on 13th and Locust in Philadelphia one night. And I was outside the club, and she basically just took me under her wing as things go in the ballroom scene. And I'm very grateful for it. She saw someone that she saw a lot of potential in, and she extended her hand and her knowledge to me.
And so like how old were you then? Because I know that
13.
a lot of stories, yeah, like people come in at a very young age and it's like a recurring theme. And like what was sort of like I'm like 22 and I can't even imagine just going out into the wilderness and just like being out there on my own. Like so like what was sort of like the feeling and the emotion like behind that just to be in this like huge city as like a young girl?
But it was very freeing.
Mhm.
Because you have to understand that at the time, it was very dangerous to be a femme queen. It was very dangerous to be gay. It was very dangerous to be out. And being that I could never hide who I was, and I was very defined about who I was and who I wanted to be, I had to basically pick a struggle, basically just be myself. And the ballroom scene, finding the ballroom scene the way I did, coming into the ballroom scene the way I did was a breath of fresh air. It was a place where I could be all those things I dreamed of as a little child without judgment, although they do judge you, but without evil judgment, with support and with care and charisma.
And you mentioned that like Tanya took you under your wing, and I'm assuming like around that time you must have like joined your first house. Can you like tell us a bit more about like being part of a house and what that looked like for you and that in that early stage?
In that early stage, joining the House of Jerlan, which was Tanya's house, we only had like 7 members. And we were very close. We were an up and coming house. We were brand new. She had just opened it. And we were small. Yet I was able to achieve what I wanted to achieve in it. And at the same time, learn what a family unit was. A family that cared, a family that was there for me. I was able to learn because they taught unities. She taught me how to Vogue. She taught me how to walk face, how to walk runway, how to walk performance. She taught me how to bring it to a category, bring it to life, bring that inner persona out, let that music flow through me. She was very caring. She was a mother, everything a mother should be. Stern when needed to be stern, loving when needed to be loving. All of them, Donnie, Prentice, Kyle, all my brothers and sisters, Miambi, Walisha, they made me feel like I was part of a real family unit in this entity that is the ballroom scene, in this entity that is in a house.
And you mentioned like for example, like Tanya was teaching you how to Vogue or like how to walk runway and how to sell it. And like, did it feel like this sort of like completely different world that you were stepping into? Like, how did it feel like finding your feet and learning the ropes?
I didn't feel like it was a completely different world. I felt like I found my world. I felt like I found the place where I belong, the place where I can be me without judgment, without fear of murder, without fear of discrimination, without fear of anxiety or just confusion. It just felt right. Like when you enter the ballroom scene and you enter it on a good footing, you enter it with people that care about you and people that cherish you, that want to teach you, that want you to learn, that want you to strive, that want you to achieve. It is a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful world.
And so, so you obviously like entered that scene at a very young age, and like I just said, like it wasn't a completely different world. It was the world which you needed, right? And you felt home, you felt safe. And so like how in those sort of like early years, like the first year, like the first 2-3 years, like how quickly did you very like immerse yourself within that world? And what did it look like from like the moment you just stepped onto the scene to like a year later?
It was very fast for me. It was very 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I came in out of nowhere and I saw, I conquered, I battled, I walked every ball, I walked every function, I walked every category. I was defiant. If you had an individual, I had so much fun. It was so much fun. I was so outgoing and everything was so happy and everything was so fresh and so new to me that I wanted to soak it up like a sponge.
And you mentioned that like you came and like you conquered, and you're this like fresh face on this scene. So like, how did people like react to you? Like, how did other houses react to you?
They loved me. They wanted me. They wanted me in their house. They wanted me to come to the ball. I started off in Philadelphia, and at the time, the Philadelphia ballroom scene was very small. You had a few houses from Philadelphia. At the time, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and New York were the only places where you have houses, and Jersey. And in Philadelphia, the main houses were excellent: Prestige, Jadu, Ultra Omni, Ferragamo, and of course, Jerlan. We were stepped onto the scene, and Revlon. So to have people from Ebony, to have people from New York, from DC, from New Jersey, come to Philadelphia to battle me, or come to Philadelphia to see me walk a mini function, or see me walk a ball, really catapulted me in the ballroom scene, really gave me the stamina that I needed.
And like two days ago, when I was speaking to Nyambi, she was saying that during that time, like it was all about like rivalries. But I remember when we spoke, you didn't necessarily have a rival, but you just had enjoyable experiences with a few people again and again. So like, who would you say were like your main competitors? Like, who did you feel excited to battle or get onto the floor with?
I always felt excited about battling every girl. If they were older than me, if they had been walking longer than me, if they had status, my top 3 would be Renee Caron, Alyssa St. Clair, and Ashley Icon. They brought the best out of me. They really made me go into my box and think outside the box for these categories. Everywhere we would battle, every time we would battle. If I saw one on the runway, I was right behind them. If they saw me on the runway, they were right behind me. It was a time where defiance ruled. It was about being unbothered. It was about being unbothered. You hit the back of that runway and you see the girl you wanted and you went after her no matter what. But at the end of the day, you said, bring it, She bought it. It was up to the judges. Whatever the judges said was word. At the end of it, we left it on the runway. There's always another ball. There's always another function. There's always another time and another look and another day to get her back or to get back.
And in terms of balls that you walked, I remember trying to find videos of you, and I think there's like one from maybe like 1993, like this really iconic video of you. But what was sort of like the main balls that you went to, like some memorable balls? Like what were some experiences that you can share?
The Bazaar Ball was memorable to me. I battled Candy LaBeija, the icon, the pioneer Candy LaBeija for Shea Fest Runway. The first time they had Shea Fest Runway, I lost, but it was an eye-opening experience and it was one of my favorite battles for runway. Let's see, the Philadelphia Venus Mizrahi Ball, which was the first time I ever walked runway, and I won against Alyssa St. Clair, Aura St. Clair, and June St. Clair, which at the time were the epitome of runway for the Femme Queens. They were the girls, they were the it girls, the Versace girls, the Versace bitches, if you were to call it. And of course, my sister, Evie Sugar Milan, who we battled for face once at Ricky Mizrahi's ball in New York, and Bobby Mizrahi's ball in New York. And I was so honored, and it was such an iconic moment for me. Even though I did not win, I felt like I learned so much. And that's the whole thing. The ballroom scene isn't about winning. It is about doing what you're supposed to do, your best, because like I've said, there's always another function. And sometimes that function doesn't come, but you learn more when you don't win than when you win constantly.
And you mentioned how like particular names and like who was dominating runway at the time, but like, can you tell us, give us more insight into like who were your inspirations, and like, because you mentioned that you do like quite a few categories, like who did you look up to for those categories? Like who were the it girls of that time?
All right, for Femme Queen Face, excuse me. For Femme Queen Face, I've always looked up to Tanae Pendarvis. For Femme Queen Runway, I always looked up to Aura St. Clair. For Femme Queen Realness, I always looked up to Renee Caron. And for Femme Queen Performance, I always have looked up to Alyssa St. Clair and Tanya Jalan. And of course, Tanaya, Ebony Alaya.
And something I'm really sort of curious about, and it was a question I also asked Nyambi, because I know that ballroom in particular, like in terms of the demographics, like it really does invite a lot of like trans women, like women of trans experience, especially like Black and Latinx trans women, who come in like at a very young age. So in terms of like your own transition and like developing your identity and coming into your own and understanding who you are, what sort of role did ballroom play with regards to that part of your development?
It played confidence. It taught me confidence. It taught me how to be comfortable in my own skin. It showed me that I was able to be confident, that I was able to be comfortable in my own skin, that I was able to be defiant, that I was able to look myself in the mirror and be satisfied with who I saw in the inside. And it taught me how to bring that I saw in the inside as a trans woman to the forefront of the outside.
Yeah, I definitely like can also relate in a similar way. Like even just watching like ballroom videos, like the energy, like you feel like even when you're just emulating moves or stances from a video, it's like you feel confident in your body, you feel confident in your appearance. So I can 100% like get that. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to that as well.
Yeah, you feel an excitement, an overwhelmness, a joy, a pure love for yourself. An inner love that you might not feel every day dealing with society, especially in the 90s, dealing with not being able to get a job, dealing with not having schooling, drugs, dealing with drug addiction, dealing with family members, disease, losing someone. You know, all of these things tear us down on the inside, and sometimes we don't shine as bright as we want to. But in the ballroom scene, when you learn to put that aside and just allow that joy and that love and that piece of your soul that you have in you, that is the flame that burns, and you allow that out on that runway, it transcends and it helps you in your everyday life. It helps you through your struggles, because when you're down, you're able to think back to that night. You might not have won, but you gave it your all. You got your tens, they were screaming your name. And you just feel like, okay, if I can do this on the ballroom floor, I can do this today. I can get over what I'm going through.
So I'm guessing you very much felt like developing within ballroom, it wasn't necessarily like you became a different person when you stepped out. It was sort of like you took what you had from ballroom and you brought that same energy and the same life outside of ballroom.
And yes, and that's the whole point of ballroom. The whole point of ballroom is to develop life skills that you're not able to learn from your family, that you're not able to learn from society, and transcend them and transmit them into your everyday life. Because of who you are, it is very difficult for us to understand and put into society's boxes. So we must create our own boxes and think later and think outside of the box and find ways to be what we want to be in society from those lessons we learn being who we are in ballroom.
Because I feel like something we were talking about yesterday when we were just chatting casually, was how like ballroom, there's like this competition aspect, and people say it's becoming too much about the competition. But then you told me like it's always going to be about competition, right? Because that's a staple part of ballroom, but it's about finding that balance between competition, but also self-development, finding yourself, finding confidence, and getting that balance right.
Yes, it is, because at the end of the day, we must remember that in this lifestyle, in the ballroom lifestyle, it is very competitive. It'll always be competitive. You can't take that out of the equation. Yet, if you balance it out, if you allow yourself to understand that ballroom, yes, ballroom is an entity. Yes, ballroom is a life of its own, but ballroom is also a stepping stone. Ballroom is also a hobby. Ballroom is also a teacher and a learner at the same time. When you balance all of these things out, it is a beautiful thing to be a part of. And it's a beautiful thing that can help you be a part of regular society.
Because like one of the like questions that people were saying when we had Nyambi's interview 2 days ago was about like, how do we create an authentic scene? Like, what does authenticity look like? So it sort of like emulates and like sticks to the roots of what it was in New York and Philadelphia. And I feel like what you were saying about like, what are you prioritizing in that space? You should be prioritizing fun, community, love, self-development, confidence, expression. And I feel like if that's what's prioritized in your ballroom space or your ballroom scene, wherever you are in the world, that is authenticity, I feel like.
Yes, to be authentic, you have to remember that to be authentic is to be yourselves. So anyone out there who is, by following the rules, by following the platform, the foundation, because nothing can be built without a stable foundation. You know, and if you build that stable foundation on family, on trust, on shade-free zone, on acceptance, then you build on top of that with everything that you wish with everything else that you wish to add into it, to keep it authentic, to keep it natural, to keep it fresh and young. Just be yourselves. Just allow it to grow on its own. Allow it to move at its own pace. For you that are starting your ballroom scenes in your places, I advise to always remember it's about fun and love. It's about having a safe space. It's about having a place where you can be yourselves no matter what. And as long as you use that as your foundation, as long as you keep your family unit, it'll always be authentic to you, your struggles, and your country. Because you can't say it's authentic if it's not based on your struggles, if it's not based on your country, if it's not based on your way of life. Because that's how the ballroom scene started in New York. the struggles, the discrimination, and the way of life built this entity that is the ballroom scene. And now for you that are young ballroom goers, that have your young scenes, it has to be based on your surroundings, based on your experiences, based on what you're going through in this day and age, and allow it to grow the way it's supposed to grow and flourish and build.
Thank you so much for that. And another thing I also really curious about is I know that you were there, like one of the first people to be a part of the House of Mizrahi back in like the early 90s, and sort of what was that experience like to be part of like a brand new house and to step out with a brand new house under your name?
It was the most awesome experience I can ever remember. Andre, Sanaya, and Jack really brought me into the house with open arms. You know, Father Andre Mizrahi was a father figure to me. I had a mother, but I didn't have a father figure at the time. I didn't have a house father figure. And to be in the House of Mizrahi from its inception, from its beginning, was a real eye-opener because I learned defiance from the Mizrahi. I learned to be more than what I was already used to being. And it was amazing because we were such a young house. We had just came out. Father came from Revlon, and coming from Revlon, which the House of Revlon is known for a family unit and family structure, he really built a family unit and a family structure for us. We all actually lived under the same roof. We experienced the same struggles, and he was a wonderful father. He is a wonderful father. And to be a part of that legacy has really meant so much to me. It has meant the world to me. I think that there would be no Venus Mizrahi without no Andre Mizrahi, without no Jack Mizrahi, without no Sanaya, without no Sandy, you know, without no Noel, without no Deshawn. Those were the original Mizrahis, without no Princess Janae, without no Jared, without no Bobby Mizrahi, both Bobbies. And that was, and Buddha Mizrahi. That's how small our house was. We were small, but we were powerful. And Heidi, our mother, Mizrahi. So we were small family house, very small for a New York house. We were very small. But when we came to Vogue, we demolished, we conquered. The children feared us, no shade, because they knew, and they came to see us because they knew when a Mizrahi hit the back of the runway, we were going to give you your money's worth. Win, lose, or draw, you was going to dread the name Mizrahi.
And just on that, so I think like maybe people watching this are like part of a house or thinking of creating a house in the future. What would you, I know you sort of already sort of explained by talking about the successes of the House of Mizrahi and like the environment that they created for you, but like what would you say makes a good house mother or a good house father, or what makes a good house for the participants in that house?
I feel as though it's unity and family structure that makes a good house, that makes, no matter what name you have, it's about owning it. It's about owning your brother, owning your sister, owning your mother, owning your father. It's about respecting. Yes, there's going to be disagreements. Yes, there's going to be shade. Like I said, shade is part of is in our DNA living in the ballroom thing. It's part of our DNA being transgender or gay or queer or cisgender. It doesn't matter what you are, shade is in you. But if you understand that this, and you trust and you know that this individual actually cares about you, that this individual, that you actually care about that individual, and you keep that in the forefront, no matter what, you will survive anything. And you will grow into anything, and that beauty will transcend onto the runway. Because when you know, no matter how big or how small your house is, no matter how old or how young your house is, and you know that these people care about you, they love you, they got your back, no matter what, it transcends. It is a beautiful thing. It is very freeing. Whether you win or lose, you know you gave it your all. And that's all that the ballroom scene is about, not holding
back. Thank you so much for that. And just something else I was really curious about, and I think maybe other people are curious about, is sort of, you walked quite a lot of categories, and you were like an all-around femme queen. And maybe you could just sort of describe to us, like, what does it mean to be all-around femme queen? Like, what does that embody?
To be an all-around femme queen embodies the fact that you walk 3 or 4 or more categories consecutively at numerous functions at any time, consistently. Like me per se, I would go to a bar and walk every category every night, except for body. I was never a body girl. You know, I was a tall, skinny, lanky thing, and body just wasn't my place. That's one thing about the ballroom scene, you gotta know your place also. But face, runway, performance, realness, I was back there with the best of them every night, every day, every ball. And that is what it's about. It's about developing and achieving and being defiant and understanding that you can achieve these things and you can be these things. So to be an all-around femme queen is meant to say that you were well-rounded in the scene. You were well-rounded in your categories. You've won at these categories. You can compete any night. And it's very, it keeps people on their toes because they don't know what category you're gonna walk any given time. You have a choice, so it's a freedom to it. You might not feel like Vogue in this night, but you feel like walking face. You might not feel like walking face this night, but you feel like walking runway. You might not feel like walking runway this night, but you feel like walking realness. So it's a balance to be an all-around femme queen. It's a freeing balance.
And just another sort of question about like categories. Is it possible if maybe you could sort of share like some names that we should know? I know you already gave us some names before, but like, for example, like femme queen performance, like I'm really interested in sort of understanding like where people fit in. So like you have Alyssa, but then like who comes before Alyssa, then who comes before that person? So maybe just a few names for each generation. That'd be really interesting.
Okay, I can only speak of the generations that were right before me. And I might be able to touch on who I've heard of, but I really can't speak on who I've heard. I can only speak of who I was there. You have Sandy Apollonia. You have Danielle Revlon, Bianca Extrava, Melissa Extrava, Brenda Extrava, Khadija St. Laurent. After that, you have Leah Richards, Modavia, LaBeija. Then after that, you have Letitia, Alyssa, Christina Richards, Tsunami now. My sister, I love you, Christina Richards. Keisha Ebony. Oh, Renee Karan. Then come Angel Gili and Tanya Jolan. Then comes Sanaya Alaya, Ashley Icon, Sabrina Icon, me, Niambi, and then you have like Sandy Mizrahi, Dior, the Anastasia Jadot. You had Renee Karan, well, I already said Renee Karan. You had the Anastasia Jadot. You had, there's so many of them, but these were basic. Didi Revlon. Of course, my sister Didi Revlon. Shout outs to Didi. And then came Twizzler and Monique and Jolanda and Charisma and Deja and Alora and Katrina Revlon. Then you had the Katrina Ebony's, the Hurricane. You had the Leomis and the lovely Leomi. We all know who she is. The Davinas and the Asias and the Mercedes and the Erica Kanes, the Tamayas. And it's an ongoing evolution. The Jasmine Khan, my baby sister, I love you, Jasmine. You have these generations of these women that can go on, and it will continue to go on and on, revolving in a circle and Vogue down. These women that, I don't call it Vogue, I call it performing, because there's a difference between voguing and performing. When you're performing, You're, excuse me, you're telling a story. Whatever that story is in your heart at that time, whatever that persona is you're bringing to the runway that the category calls for, the music that flows through you, that allows you, when you're performing, you allow the music to flow through you, and it tells your body to flow to the beat, not hit the beat. It tells your body what to do, what to say with your hand movements, with your catwalk, with your elements. A performer knows and does its element, period.
And I think like, because I feel like a lot of people's first insight into ballroom is watching like voguing clips of like people through the decades. And what would you sort of say to people who are discovering their performance, work on their performance? Like, what tips would you have? Like, because I think it's very easy to just look at someone and be like, okay, that's what I need to do. So like, would you say like move away from that and discover your own thing? Or like, are there basics that you should look for?
Basically, first of all, before anything, you have to learn your foundation. The foundation of voguing, the foundation of any performance is the old way. So research it. I'm not saying become an overall old way voguer, but allow your moves, allow yourself to get accumulated with the old way, because the old way will teach you gracefulness. It will teach you style. It will teach you confidence. Then comes the practice, 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 practice. Always practice, live, breathe it, eat it, sleep it. Secondly, your research. Always research those who are different. Always research those who Vogue is unique. Find your own style. Find your own, allow your own style to come out. Yes, during your research, you're going to see things that you want, but don't mimic. Allow it to come naturally. Allow the music to flow through you. Allow the music to tell your body what you're feeling, to tell your body your sensuality, your emotion, your goal. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's going to change when you're able to allow your body to tell its own story. Every performance is going to be different. Every battle is going to be different. You're going to have more of an advantage because you're going to be unique in your own way, because you are unique and we are all unique.
And I just want to ask, like, how would you describe your style or like your performance, or like how does it change according to like your mood perhaps, or the music?
I'm more of a flower. I'm a flower in my performance. I flow through beats. You know, I hit beats, but I really don't hit beats. I'm more of a voguer, a voguing performer. I just like to flow. I allow the music to flow through me. I'm soft and kind, honey. I'm a woman.
So are we not going to see you like slam your back on the floor like consecutively?
Oh no, baby. I'm a little too old and I think I'm a little too big for that. I leave that to the young girls. You know, I've done it and it just doesn't look right. I have to stay in my lane.
And just to sort of take you back, like you were mentioning how like you came to the floor, like you conquered, you made a name for yourself. And I know that like the terminology for people who are able to do that is like a legend or an icon. And in your eyes, like what does it mean to be a legend or an icon, or even like a star or a statement? Like what do you do to get there?
Well, a star, a statement, a legend, an icon, to me, we'll start off with a star. A star is someone who shines no matter what, who comes in new and bright and is defiant and knows what it wants and is fighting hard to get it and has made people know it. And it has made more than people know it, it made herself know it. A statement is someone who has made their statement, who is there, who has solidified itself, who's turning it back to back and stealing it consistently. A legend is someone who has more than multiple times been there, done that, has its status. And an icon is someone who is now in a position to teach, in a position to guide, in a position to allow others to step into her role. And they have done it all. So they sit at the shusha fufu table. They're up there. There's someone you can come to in confidence. By walking, you're showing someone, by winning, you're showing someone how to do it. That's how you get there. You get there by walking, by winning, by being all that you are, by contributing to this community, this is the ballroom scene.
And like, I think like you mentioned this before about like what it takes to be like a good mother or like a good father. But like for those people who have reached that status of like legendary or an icon, or like they've created like a Kiki scene or something, like a Kiki house, what does it look like to bring someone in and guide them? Like what would that look like?
It looks like the most beautiful thing in the world. First of all, shout out to the Kiki scenes, the Old Navies, the Pink Ladies, the Juicies, you know, all of you. I love you all. The Kiki scenes, like I hear there's a Kiki scene in Paris, the House of Venus. I love you. I love the Kiki scene. I love them. And it looks like, to me, it's very loving. You would guide them by basically showing them what you've experienced, showing them what you see, showing them through your eyes, through your actions, through your love, you know, guiding them, helping them, not only in the ballroom scene, but in real life also. You know, unfortunately, we suffer, and this isn't just in the ballroom scene, it's in the real scene, it's in the mainstream. We suffer a lot from diseases. We suffer a lot from drug use. We suffer a lot from alcoholism. We suffer a lot from homelessness and financial hardship, especially now with this corona. We've been suffering a lot with loss of family. So to actually, excuse me, to actually be there for someone in their time of need, apart from the ballroom scene, apart from just getting them an outfit and getting them into a ball and having them walk just to get your name out. To be a good mother, to be a good father is someone that can provide safety, love, and a consistent fatherly or motherly figure in a person's life that may not have experienced that in their regular life, or that has, but need a little bit more, or want a little bit. That is what being a true mother and a father.
And just quickly, well, to the people watching, if you have any sort of questions that you want to ask Venus, there's a Q&A button that you can just type a question into, or just like use the chat, and I'm very much welcome to sort of throw them at Venus. Venus has said she's down for some questions, so feel free to submit any questions.
Come pick my brain, babies.
Honestly, like you're such an incredible like source of like information and knowledge, and so people watching live right now, you're in for a treat, like anything that you have. Oh, well, we have a question. So who are some of your favorite Femme Queen performers today?
Naomi, Amazon, Mercedes, Prodigy, Michaela, I forgot what I was doing, Michaela, I'm sorry. Star Revlon, I love Star Revlon. Jasmine Khan, I love Jasmine Khan. Davina, I love Davina. Those are just the little babies that I look at and I love.
And we have like another question. This is related to categories. So I know that Nyambi was sort of saying how we've lost a lot of categories that just aren't really done anymore. Like I know like there's like cunt in a box, or there's quite a few. But one question is, are there any categories that have like changed through the years, like in the way that they're structured, or like the criteria or the requirements for that category?
Everything changes. You have to understand that everything changes. Nothing stays the same, and that's the beauty of the ballroom scene. It evolves, and it's supposed to evolve. It's not supposed to not change, because then it stagnates and it gets boring. Yes, we have lost some categories, but I think it's because sometimes we've been losing our imagination in the ballroom scene. You know, we're a bit not, at least in America, we're not paying much attention to the fun of it at times, you know, and But it will change because everything is a revolving door. It's a circle, as is history. Everything that's been here has been done and will be done again. So I don't think of it as them being lost. I just think of it, the right person hasn't thrown a ball yet to bring them back up again.
I remember there was this one ball that I was watching. I think it was like the 1993 Shade Fest. And I think like Hector was commentating. And there was like this like reading battle between Letitia and Khadidra. And I was just watching it, and it was just like really iconic lines that they were throwing at each other, like really shady lines. And I was like, I have not seen that from a modern ball.
Verbal Vogue. That category is called Verbal Vogue. And it's basically you sit across from the person that you feel as though you have something to say to, or they have something to say to you, the person you're battling, and you just go off, and at the time, you were able to do that because people knew the rule, leave it on the runway. I was there that night, and they were iconic. They went in, they disrespected, they read, but at the end of the day, if it might not have been shown in the clip, but when they got off that runway, they hugged, they kissed, and they went and had a drink and had some dinner afterwards. So you must always remember to leave it on the ballroom floor. When you're doing these categories that ask for shit, that ask for reading, remember that whatever's said on the runway, whatever's done on the runway, stays on the runway.
And I think like there was this line that was mentioned in the interview like 2 days ago. It was about like, if you're gonna walk or if you're gonna get on that stage, like you need to be prepared to be judged, and like you can't take it to heart, you can't take it personally. Just use it as like as you said, like ballroom is about development, right? It's about building that confidence and about like growing that thicker skin. So I guess that you really have to approach ballroom in that way, because otherwise if you just take everything to heart, like it can really cripple you.
You're gonna break, and that's one thing about us in this ballroom scene. We are born with thicker skin, because it takes a lot for an individual to say, I'm joining a house, but it takes a lot for an individual to say, I'm walking this runway, or I'm going to walk this category that I've never walked before and I never won before. That is the battle won, period. Once you set foot at the back of the runway, everything else is icing on the cake. So once you understand that, okay, this is who I am, this is what I want, this is going to be, being chopped shouldn't bother you. Losing shouldn't bother me. I get chopped all the time. I've gotten chopped through my history, probably more than what I've won. Being truthful, I don't look at it as a loss. I looked at it as a privilege and a learning experience, because you chopped me today, but tomorrow at the next ball, baby, I'm going to make you see it. Somehow, some way, you're going to give me my 10. You might not give it to me then, but you're going to give it to me now. And that is what the ballroom scene is about. When you sit on that runway, you give a person free reign to judge you. And in the 90s, they judged you competitively. They judged you like they were judging for the gold at the Olympic Games, honey. You had to come, the category called for a black and white shoe. You better have had that black and white shoe in that pattern they called for. Because it wasn't only enough for it to be black and white. It had to be the pattern. So just be prepared and be yourself. And allow the growth to come out of it.
So I have a question. So someone has asked, we sort of touched upon this about like building a scene, like what a good like scene or house should look like. But someone has asked, what would you recommend to the people who are building a Vogue scene in a country where it doesn't exist? And this person is asking from Ecuador. So like completely from scratch, what would you recommend?
Hola, mi ecuadoreña o ecuadoreño, ¿cómo estás? Basically, what I would like to say is build a foundation. Talk to somebody that knows. Talk to somebody who has been there. My Instagram is Venus Mizrahi. You're free to follow me and talk to me in it, and I'll help you and I'll guide you through it. I have no problem with that. And that's to anyone creating a ballroom scene or having a ballroom scene. Feel free to reach out to me on Facebook under Lilandra Mizza, or feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. or anybody that has been in the ballroom scene that you know of. It could be somebody in the country near you. It could be anyone. Ask questions and make research and do research.
And this is a question, like a more of a historical question that someone has asked. So back in your time, like in the 90s, like early 90s, the question is, how did femme queens support each other with regards to healthcare and hormones back when you first came into the scene? Like, what was the environment like? The
environment was very sisterly. Femme queens took care of femme queens. The older took care of the young took care of the younger. If one girl had hormones, she went to her sisters and gave her hormones. If one girl was sick, we all banded together and were at her door. Like, we are a sisterhood. No matter what people see, no matter what they say, whether it was in the 90s or it is now, we are a sisterhood. We're a sisterhood by being there for each other, by caring about each other, by guiding each other, by nurturing each other, by giving each other tips, by saying, okay, you might say it in a reading fashion. Like, I remember there was this one time where a femme queen caught me, this femme queen that wasn't even in the ballroom scene. Her name was Kelly Harper, and she called me my auntie. She called me a little Latin boy with long hair. But 2 hours later, she came with a hormone shot and said, this is what you need, bam. So it's about respect, and it's about unity, and it's about love, and it's about understanding that if you have something that you have learned and you see someone with that needs it, it's about extending that hand freely.
And this sort of question, another question is sort of related to that, because I know that like some of the commentary like nowadays is that femme queens just aren't given the respect that they deserve, particularly like if you consider like that they were like the foundation, like the pioneers of this culture and this scene. And so someone has asked, in your opinion, what are the hardships of femme queens in ballroom, and how can we do it better in Europe, or how can we uplift femme queens in Europe?
One of the hardships that's hardest, there was hardest in ballrooms, that is hardest in ballrooms, to me would be basically support, mental health, drug addiction, homelessness, loneliness, health. You know, these things are unfortunately a part of a transgender woman's or a transgender man's life. And we have an opportunity right now in this day and age to support each other with these resources that we didn't have in the 90s. So we need to chain together. And if you know someone, and tell a sister and tell a brother and let somebody know, I need help. Or and it's not as proud, and it's too proud to act. You don't have to tell them you're helping them. Just help them. And remember the history of ballroom and how it started from the.
Your sound keeps cutting out.
Oh shit.
We've lost your camera, but we can hear you.
One moment.
No worries.
One moment. There we go. You got me?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
I had a bit of technical difficulties. But yes, it's about uplifting and about support.
Another question, I guess, is like this another historical question. Was 14th Street or like the meat packing district the only way girls could survive?
Yes, unfortunately, but not the only way. Some worked, some went to school, some had family support, some used their IDs and stuff like that, and it's basically as it is today. You have a choice. You have a choice whether you want to escort or you don't want to escort. You have a choice whether you want to further your education. But the girls did use 14th Street to uplift themselves, to get their money and get their surge and get their hair and get their makeup and get ready for that ball and pay their rent and pay their bills and pay their hormone bills, because we didn't have the programs we have now. We were discriminated against, so we didn't have everything that we have now. So at the time, it was very rough for a transgender woman, especially coming from poor communities.
And this is like another question someone sort of asked, I guess, is like also sort of related, or just like in the same theme of like what it was like to be a trans woman during that time, and sort of like the progress and the development and the growth that you experienced. So someone has asked, like, what would you tell your younger self regarding your transition and your journey?
I would tell myself to not do drugs. I would tell myself to make smart choices. I would tell myself to stay in school.
And another question is someone has asked that they're interested to know your version about the birth of pop, dip, and spin as a category. So I'm not sure how much you know about that category or the history of it, but like, what stories have you heard about the origin of it?
That was before me, but all I can say is what I've heard about pop, dip, and spin. What did you want to know? The origin? The origin, I would say pop, dip, and spin, from what I've heard, the origin is Paris Dupree.
And also another question sort of similar related to like the development history of voguing. Someone has asked, when and how did duck walking and catwalking come into Vogue, if you know the answer or heard a story?
Duck walking and catwalking has always been a part of voguing. They just did it. It was just a part of it. It was basically what I've said. These people allowed the music to tell their bodies what to do. When you allow that, these elements were born. It was nothing forced. It was nothing. It all came from the poses. It all came from the yearning to want to be accepted, the yearning to want to be loved, to want to be cherished, to want to be a star. And those poses led to these actions, and the music and the demand and the goal and the defiance just blended together and became this entity that is performance. The elements of Vogue.
And another question is, so someone has asked, what can people who are mostly spectators of the ballroom scene do to support the ballroom community?
Always cheer. Always give a person their 10s. And when I say they 10s, I don't mean on the judges panel, I mean as support. When a person is walking, it takes a lot. So cheer, no matter whether you like her or not, allow her to clap, cheer, call their name, because this makes a person in the ballroom scene feel they're a part of the ballroom. Makes them feel grabbed, it makes them feel lovely, it makes them feel like, okay, I belong, accepted. And us in the ballroom scenes are about acceptance. You must always accept, even if it's your girlfriend they battling, it's always good to scream the other person's name, because your girlfriend knows you're there for her. She probably has her own house brothers and sisters screaming her name for us. So it's always good to support each other. And that's what the ballroom scene is about, uplifting each other.
I definitely agree with that. Like, there's some clips that I would watch from like more of like the 2000s, and people would really get up and scream and cheer. But then when you look at like, I don't know, like a 2018 latex ball or a 2017 latex ball, I'm just like, this is the biggest ball of the year, but where's the energy? There's more energy shown in like a mini ball sometimes. So I definitely agree, like the energy needs to come back. That's one way to support.
Yes.
And just I'm just mindful of time, so maybe I'll just do a few more questions. Just like one or two. So someone has asked, this is about Femme Queens. So they've asked, are Femme Queens in ballroom supposed to look a specific way? Could a Femme Queen be chopped from other categories, different than realness because they don't look feminine enough?
It depends on what the category calls for in the image. It depends on the judge. It's all about the judge. When you're being chopped, it's about the judge's definition or the judge's outlook on what the category is calling for. And remember, ballroom is and will always be a beauty pageant. So it revolves around that is its foundation. It might make a difference if you remember that.
Here's quick comment from someone. Someone has said, slash asked, they've said, Venus, sometimes I feel that ego gets in the way for some people in ballroom, and that affects the whole community. When starting a ballroom scene in the country, how can we overcome and heal this ego so we can be a strong community and grow together in spite of having different perspectives and opinions, keeping the love and not forgetting the bigger picture?
All right, here's my advice to that one. There will always be egos. There's egos in society, there's egos in corporations, there's egos in the household. What I do with egos, I'll pay them dust, honey. Do not take an egotistical bitch to heart. Pay them unbothered dust. They're egotistic, don't let that ruin your day. Don't let that ruin your scene. Be unbothered about it. Let them be an ego. At the end of the day, their head is bigger than they are. But show them you care. Show them that you're there, that you're going to be yourself, no matter what their opinions are. And that's all you can do.
And I'm going to combine these two next questions because they're sort of similar, I guess, in a way. So someone has asked, what is the difference between the Philadelphia scene and the New York scene? And someone has also asked, like, what was it like moving from Philly to New York as a teenager?
The difference was that New York was the epicenter of ballroom. So that's where everybody wanted to be at. So it was like going from a rinky-dink town to the Big Apple. You know, going from a country town to the city of London, or going from the desert to Abu Dhabi, or going from the jungle to Nigeria, to the whatever main city there is in Nigeria.
And I guess like one just small question, just about your own personal life. Someone has asked, like, how did you get the bravery and the confidence to leave home and like make that journey to New York?
I was defiant. I knew what I wanted. I saw what I wanted. I came, I saw, and I conquered. It was about accepting who I was and accepting what I wanted and just not letting nothing stop me. But I also had the support to do this. I had a house family waiting. I had been surrounded by loving people and caring people like Andre Mizrahi and Jack Mizrahi and Sanaya and Sandy, you know, and the Revlons, Danielle Revlon and Tony Revlon and Stuart Revlon, Ebony now. You know, it's just amazing when you're able and you allow yourself to be loved by people. And that's something in the ballroom scene we have to allow. We have to allow people to love us. And we have to love them and respect them in return.
And I know I keep saying that's going to be the final question, but I'll just do two more, and then that's it. Because we did say 1 hour, and also you're going to perform for us soon. So don't want to keep you for too long. So someone has asked, like, how do you feel about ballroom going mainstream and commercial? Is it a blessing, a curse, or somewhere in between?
To me, it's a blessing. To me, it's a curse. To me, it's somewhere in between. To me, it's everything. Like everything in life, it has to find its balance. But I love the fact, personally, I love the fact that it's mainstream. I love the fact that it's commercial. I love the fact that people in my genre, people in my lifestyle, people that I've seen struggle, people that have struggled are making, not allowed, but making and paving a way for all of us to achieve our dreams in mainstream. So it is a blessing. I'm not going to say it's anything else. It is anything but a blessing. With all blessings, we have to balance it out. It can be a double-edged sword.
And just for, this is my final question, and I promise it's the final question. So like, just to like sort of contextualize it, like my sort of journey into sort of discovering ballroom was very much through watching like videos, like particularly like interviews that Luna had done or Caesar or Ballroom Throwbacks. And that really allowed me to just sort of discover this world and really get intimately into the stories. And like, I always like note, like I'm watching videos from like 30 years ago, like 25 years ago, and it's taken me 25 years or like maybe 8 years since the video was uploaded to discover it. But once I did discover it, I finally discovered it and like, I got something from it. And so of course, this is going to be uploaded to YouTube after. So I want to ask, like, for those people who are perhaps going to be watching this video in 5, 10, 15, 20 years or 30 years, right? In the same way that I'm watching videos of you from 30 years ago in 1993. What do you say to those people who are watching in decades to come? Is there anything that you want them to know, like a final message for them?
I would like to say, love me, learn me, and understand me. I am Venus Mizrahi. I love, I cherish, and I allowed myself to be who I wanted to be at a time and a place that wasn't allowing that. And that you should allow and be who you want to be at your time and place.
Thank you so much, Venus. And I think that's like a really nice ending. And like, as I said, like this video is going to be part of the archive, you know, like when people are watching Paris is Burning or like How Do I Look, they're going to be looking for more material. Like your story is something that's going to come up. And as you said, like you came to the scene, you made your name known, you conquered it, and people for decades to come are going to know of you and know what you did. So even if there isn't much visual footage like lying out there of you when you're 16, at least we have this and your story has been told. And this definitely is not going to be the last time you're going to share your story, you know? Like, as you said, like ballroom is going mainstream, more people are going to want to know the origins, the names, the stories behind it. And I'm sure there's going to be plenty of opportunity in the next decade and decades to come to have that platform. And I'm just really lucky that myself, like this kid from London, like at 22, just like doing some university job, has been given that opportunity to like platform you in this small way. And I'm 100% know you're going to go on to much bigger platforms. And if I ever come to New York to visit, I'm going to invite you to a ball, or you're going to invite me, and we're going to have some fun. And I promise I'm going to be sharing because you deserve all the applause, because you really did. And I think you did pave a way for a lot of people. Like people are going to look to your videos, look to your story for inspiration and motivation. So thank you so much for your contribution.
Anytime.
So
are you ladies ready for a little hand performance?
I don't know, let me ask the audience. Audience, are you ready for Venus to give you some performance? They're saying they're ready. So let me turn my camera off so they're not looking at my reaction.
It's my favorite song of all time. It's called Life After Death. It is a 90s ballroom song, and you don't hear it much anymore. Love you all. All right, babies.
That was incredible, and there's so much love coming in the comment section. That is what you call performance, right? That is something that people are going to want to emulate in the future and then put their own spin on it. So thank you so much for that contribution. And are there any final words that you want to say as like a quick little closer?
I love you all. Thank you for coming. And I hope that I was informative, loving, caring. Happy Valentine's Day. Remember, always keep love in your heart, knowledge in your mind, and a beat in your blood, darlings.
Thank you so much, Venus. Bye, everyone.